recording to tell me that, hey, look, we're here, you know, we're recording, but it doesn't do that. But I have a nice little thing here, that a visual that helps. So now this is the part where I think I share my screen, if you remember how to do it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, this is from week to week. You get used to it. But, and open this thing. And PowerPoint. Ah, so there it is. Can't display content. File might have been deleted or moved, or you might not have access. Okay, so we'll try that again.
Carlos, can you hear me?
There's my show.
Yes.
How's it?
Okay, so we are so close together that when this COVID stuff's over, we have to meet.
Just let me know when.
Yeah, who wouldn't agree with that?
Ah.
I'm looking forward to our first in-person session.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, I would be looking forward to it.
Can we have a secret meeting?
Sure, why not? Just don't tell me about it. It'll be okay. Well, it's good to have everyone here tonight, and I'm not gonna try to delay things or make too many jokes along the way. Nah, I can't promise that. There'll be jokes. They're coming. But let's go ahead and get started. We have a little bit of work to do. Okay, tonight's agenda, we will have a change model case study, 2 presentations, one from Rachael and one from Jamaris. And as before, I'm counting on Rachael and Jamaris to tell me who's on first and who's on second. And that will be helpful for me. So thanks for that. And then once we're finished with those, I'm going to present some content related to transformational leadership. If any of you are familiar with that, and I know some of you are, it's for the types of big opportunities, big changes that we're talking about. It goes hand in hand with those models, like Kotter's model with a big opportunity in the middle. You need transformational leaders at every level in an organization to make that work. And then we'll go through our upcoming events. I did mean to turn my camera off, but I didn't. No, so I'm going to do that now. Very nice. Okay, change model case study presentations. We have Rachael and Jamaris. Same rules as last time. The discussion points are pretty straightforward. What your change issue is, what change models you chose to solve your core issue, and what your change plan is. That's 30 minutes with questions. So I will ask the question, who's up?
I'm going first.
Very good. You know, that works out because I can just zippy through. Whoop. There you go. Look good? Now,
Yes.
do you want me to turn the screen over to you, or you're just going to tell me slide or something?
Yeah, I'll tell you to slide.
I like that. Thank you. Okay, I'm all yours. And we are, get my little thing going here. I'll mute my mic so you don't have to listen to it. And go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As you can see, my name is Jamaris Moore, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about the adoption of a trouble ticket database. Slide. Go to the next slide. All right. So I am currently, just to give you a little bit of background, I am currently employed as a computer scientist mathematician at the Naval Oceanographic Office, where I work in the New Technologies Division. And this division falls under the Mine Warfare Department. And as the name states, the purpose of my division is to keep our department abreast on emerging technologies and innovations within the Navy community and help implement or facilitate, if need be, transitions from older technologies and software systems to the most current and promising platforms. So another vital role that our division plays is the maintenance and upkeep of software, of a particular software package that was developed internally by our fellow computer scientists in my office. And this software package is daily utilized by analysts within the Mine Warfare Department to create products for the United States Navy, Fleet Forces, Navy commands, domestic and abroad, and for select personnel who put in work requests to our office. Therefore, the upkeep and the enhancing of this software is paramount to the department's success. And so this leads to the change initiative that I will speak about tonight, the development and adoption of a software trouble ticket database. So why was there a trouble ticket database? Why was there a need for a trouble ticket database? So as I stated earlier, we have several individuals who use our software during training missions and for building essential products. And with so many people using the software, we often find areas where it could be improved for easier use and for faster product generation. The problem we encountered, however, is how these issues were being reported and tracked. Prior to the development of the database, we had no functional system in place. Someone would literally just walk into our office and say, look, man, I have this particular problem. Can you walk down the hall and take a look at it? Can you assist me with it? And so with this process, there was no documentation in place. There were no instructions or procedures requiring me to write this down or to report it to another computer scientist in the office. And so what happens was I would go work on something for someone, or another computer scientist in the office would work on something for someone else, and no one else in the office would know about it. And to make matters worse, more than 70% of our department are required to travel. We call ourselves survey travelers, meaning that we are put on government orders by the Department of Defense, and we are essentially deployed for a month or 2 or 3, however long the mission requires, to conduct missions for the United States Navy. And we have had occasions where individuals were given a personalized copy of a software for their office. And once they went on a mission, once they went across seas, put on orders for a research trip, they thought that their personalized software they had been given in the office would mirror what was already pre-installed out there on our research vessels. And so when they contacted our office to address the issue and complain about why the software isn't working or why does it not look like what it looked like while I was in the office, we had no paper trail. We had no form of communication to track what had been modified for them or what had been done to make their life easier on this side. And so when you consider that the person who may have assisted them while they were in the office, that one person or individual they had come to, say for instance, they had come to me, what if I was gone on a survey trip? What if I was out of the office and I was the only one who knew about that particular issue? Then we had no way of following that. We had no way of tracking that. So the key facts in this for this database, development of the database, is that the adoption of the trouble ticket database would allow our office to work fluently and efficiently if it was put in place, if it was adopted. And my supervisor, he was the sole responsibility in saying, Jamaris, you can go forth, you can do this, but he would be leaning on the senior computer scientist within the office, because in my particular case, my supervisor is not a computer scientist. He's a business manager with no computer science background. So he depends heavily on the computer scientist in the office to help guide his decisions for the office. And so as Roger stated, I use those senior computer scientists in my office as my lieutenants, if you would let me say, and for the change initiative that we were trying to employ. So slide 2, content slide 2, I mean. So as I looked over all of the change models, I found that the Association of Talent Development's ATD model closely aligned with the steps I took to develop and have my department adopt the trouble ticket database. So step one, the first step in the ATD's model is to challenge the current state, So I'm going to refer to Association of Talent Development as ATD. So when I say that, that's who I'm referring to. So ATD stated that in this step, employees recognize that something needs to change. So there is a problem. There's a wrong policy. There's outdated procedures. People are not being held accountable. You're not receiving proper buy-in or constructive feedback from your supervisor. Your quarterly statements are trending downwards or for your company, or your students are not progressing academically. So sometimes we find in this first step individuals who would rather not be viewed as the culprit or the one stirring the hornet's nest, but someone has to stand up. Someone has to be bold enough to recognize that this is a problem and speak out saying that we need to address this problem. Because if our actions or inactions, are inhibiting us from reaching our expected milestone. ATD also stated that this step is usually initiated by someone at or near the top of an organization. And so let's just consider, I'm going to use my first example, one, the inclusion of technology within the classroom. Studies have shown that incorporating technology in the classroom can engage students more and help facilitate learning. However, in some schools or districts, we have some individuals who feel that education could become, the children can become excessively dependent on that technology. And as a result, it may distract their learning and their focus. So over time, we have witnessed how the incorporation of technology is trending positively within the classroom. But to get to this point, someone had to be that change agent. Someone had to be bold enough to say that this is something that needs to change. This is something we need to address. This is something that can actually benefit our students and the school system. So being bold, recognizing that there is a change and being bold about it, to speak out about it. The second step is harmonize and align leadership. Harmonize and align the leadership. So in this step, the facilitator ensures leaders are clear on communication, clear on the vision, the magnitude, and required actions for leading a change effort. I'll say that again. The facilitators are clear on the vision, the magnitude, and the required actions for leading a change agent. So So vision. Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to accomplish? What individuals will be instrumental in getting us to that desired point? Which practices should we abandon and which ones should we embrace? Everyone at the table should know and understand the change effort. And one thing I would like to say is if everyone involved could answer these 4 questions, it should help the change effort in the end. Why are we changing? Understanding why are we changing? What are we changing to? How will the change be implemented? And how will that change benefit the organization? So vision, that's your vision, the magnitude. We talked about, for example, if you look at example 2, Cotter speaks of creating a sense of urgency. So if people don't see the change effort as an urgent one or as important or beneficial to the organization, they will work directly or indirectly against its adoption. And finally, required actions. If your change initiative, there may be room or instances where the change agent can allow some level of flexibility. However, during this harmonizing and aligning of leadership step, it is imperative that we always, at the very beginning, state these are issues we will not be able to compromise on. So your people will know that this is ingrained in stone. It will not change. Now, we may be able to change on these other points, but this particular idea we will not change on. So knowing your vision and communicating the magnitude of it and stating those required actions will help you in this phase. Step 3, activate commitment. ATD states that in this step, the team recognizes that people will have individual reactions to change, ranging from immediate denial or resistance to indifference or acceptance. So just because people are at odds with your change effort does not mean that they do not have legitimate concerns that require addressing. Sometimes resistance can lead to learning, development, and growth even within your organization. So the main point here is that you should approach your change efforts with an expectation that more than likely you will encounter individuals who will not share the same enthusiasm as you do about the effort. However, you should persevere in this state and put your best effort forward, and also try to sympathize with them when you can and let them know that you understand where they're coming from, but just the organization is moving in this direction at this time, and we would like for you to be a part of it. And a thing to note here is that because if that person that's initially resistant to that change has big influence within your organization, he could potentially derail the change effort by, getting support to go against what you're trying to push forward. So ATD also stated that a successful change initiative will address reactions, communicate clearly, and work toward building commitment rather than just compliance. Commitment over compliance is vital in efforts. I can be compliant and yet lack the passion or work ethic that may prove instrumental in sustaining the initiative. But if I'm committed to it, I'm going to be passionate about it. I'm going to talk to other individuals about it and try to get them on board as well. But when I'm just compliant, going along just because the boss says this is what we're going to do, then it's not going to help us in the long run. Step 4, nurture and formalize a design. ATD states that in this step, change facilitators formalize a design process which may include creating a communication plan and a training plan and selecting appropriate metrics to measure the effectiveness of the change effort. So in this state, at this step, leadership and creativity are the major components in this step. As change agents, we should be sensitive and in tune with our environments to know what will work, what will not work, and at the same time be innovative enough to institutionalize a meaningful change, not just something that people will say, he's just doing that, just say he's doing something, but let it be meaningful so that it can actually put the organization into a better light. And so moving to step 5, guide implementation. ATD states that this step requires the change agent to keep the implementation plan moving forward. Building on step 4, keeping that implementation plan moving forward. And this can be done by generating short-term wins, which we also talked about with Carter, and identifying ways to increase resilience. So your management skills should come into play in this step. Who will the workforce report to? What procedures will be put in place to resolve issues as they arise? How will we ensure we are maintaining budget, staying on the budget? Good management skills and will assist in guiding implementation. And the final step, evaluate and institutionalize the change. These states that in this step, employees should encourage others to accept the desired change and to institutionalize the process, the product, or philosophy until it becomes normal. So as you evaluate your change initiative, what we want to stress here is to be transparent. Just be transparent. What worked and what did not work should be communicated to everyone in the workforce, and to let them know that not only do we recognize that these issues did not work or these procedures did work or did not work, we're going to address the ones that did not work so that we can bring you on board, and then we can move to encouraging you to adopting it, and encouraging you to see that we're actually trying to do the right thing here. What we want to change is actually going to benefit the organization. So we're trying to get you to that point, encouraging you and evaluating and institutionalizing the change. So first, consider transparency. Just be open and let them know. And then hit it home. Go hit for the home run. Go for the home run. Look, we're trying to solidify this change. We just need you to get on board. All right. So content slide 3. And this one is the methodology for implementation and adoption. So first, how did I change the current state? What did I do to try to change the current state? First, I recognized that we had a problem that needed addressing. And when I addressed it, when I addressed it, I went to them and said, well, here's a solution to our problem. Not just stating that we're having a problem, but actually coming in and coming with something that we can do to mitigate that problem. So what I told them was we needed a functional system in place to deal with software bugs and changes and to track these things so that we won't be caught off guard when certain issues arise, as in the case where people going across seas and calling us, asking and telling us that our software isn't working as it should. So we need a functional system in place so that we can know, who did you talk to? What did this individual do? What code did he alter? So that we can know all of these things and we'll have something in place. All right, so the second thing, what was essential to harmonizing and aligning the leadership? For me, communication was key. I spoke with my colleagues first and got them on board. As I stated earlier, I was trying to utilize them as my lieutenants. And once we were all on the same page, I went and presented this to my supervisor. And so once he saw that, okay, the computer scientists are on board with this, the office is on board with this, then let's try to move forward and see if this will really work for us. So step 3, how did I activate commitment? First, I accomplished this by communicating the benefits that the database would bring to our office. When we considered our operations, when considering our operations prior to the adoption of the database, it just made sense to move forward with that effort. It just made sense. All right, so step 4, what steps did I take to nurture and formalize a design? Well, what I tried to do was welcome ideas from my coworkers, welcome ideas from individuals who would utilize the system most, who utilize our software most. And so once they gave me back that feedback and told me what they would like to see and what they expected to see, then we went and tried to implement that and put that into the database. The 5th step, how did I guide implementation? First, we set up training for individuals who are not as tech savvy, who cannot just log on and utilize the system. And so I will talk about example 3 here with learning and adjusting. And one of those initial trainings that we had, it did not go as expected. What we had tested on our personal systems, but when we tried to put it on a network for other people to test it and try it out, we encountered problems. And they were problems that could easily be resolved, but the fact is, we made a big blunder after going and saying that this was going to work. This was going to be the best thing for us. But the point I'm trying to make is examine your failures, as is stated here. Examine your failures with curiosity and not self-condemnation. You might not hit the home run every time, but learn from it, adjust to it, and keep moving. The final step, what were the best methods to evaluate and institute the change? So after the database was running and in full use, we just simply asked people, like, how's it working for you? What needs to change again? If there were issues with the database, we did not hide them. We were transparent about it. Afterwards, we made it policy that if you have a trouble ticket or if you have any concerns with the software, before we could adjust anything, before we could do anything for you, we needed you to first submit a ticket. And no computer scientist will be able to assist you without first submitting that ticket. All right, next slide. These are my references, and that is my presentation. Any questions?
Yes, of course we'll have questions. Feel free to jump in or use the hand raise function, however you want to roll.
Hi, Jamaris. It's Sandra.
Hey.
Hey, look, how long did it take for you to implement those changes?
We started off, so after I got everyone on board, it only took me as long as just coding everything up. So once I got everything coded and got the input from the individuals who would be, like I said, be utilizing the system, I guess we probably got that coded in like a week or two and did some testing and put it out there for people to play with it.
Wow, that was fast.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you did a great job. You had a great presentation.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
I'm just kind of curious. I'm going to ask this. What model did you use in this whole process? Agile or something else?
We use Microsoft, actually. And what we coded, we just did it the, is that the question you're asking?
No, not really.
Okay.
What was your developmental process?
Oh, using ATD?
Well, either using ATD or, like when we develop training, a lot of times we'll use the ADDIE model. Here lately, we're doing things like SAM and Agile. And the Agile model really, and I think ADDIE to some respects came from computer development, software development. You guys, you scientists.
Right.
So I was just wondering, what was your overall structure for developing this software? Did you follow a particular model?
I can't really say that I just followed a model. What we did was just after seeing the problem and seeing how, it was a continued issue within our department and that nothing was being done. Like, I guess it had become comfortable with leadership to just continue as is. And if problems arise, we'll just work with it as, we're not getting fussed at it, if you want to use that. But so I just went and tackled it, just saying that this is a problem we have. Can we just address it so that next time we're asked to give a report or anything like that, or just to address something, we have something documented and we can go back to. But no, I didn't have a particular model that I followed.
No, I was just curious about that because, a lot of times when you'll develop training, you develop a software program or anything really. A lot of times you'll follow some kind of a model that would include like an alpha and a beta test of the thing. And a lot of times because I worked in contracting for a long time with the government, and a lot of times you'd have to have all that stuff laid out ahead of time. As far as exactly how are you going to do, what resources you're going to use, how much it was going to cost, how much time, how many people, what specialties, level of effort, the whole thing. And but
and I guess
those are large. Those are pretty large projects.
Yeah, they were about to say, I guess in this case, because it was free to us, we already had the software system. All we just had to do was put something in place to, actually work.
Well, hats off to you for recognizing there was a problem and stepping up to fix it, because a lot of times we'll do self-help work and we won't even know if there's a problem unless somebody comes back to us at some point and starts complaining.
Right.
And I have a long story that I'm not going to tell, where I was involved with a distance learning software on CD-ROM that was homegrown while I was in the Air Force, and let's just say it wasn't pretty.
I think Carlos had raised his hand.
Yeah, Jamaris, good job. My question is, did you have to show a ROI, or what's the benefit to to your department prior to you guys launching this? And the reason why I asked that is because the concept of like the business manager is the supervisor and doesn't have the IT background. Is like they typically like to stick IT and finance for some reason because they don't know where to put them. So just curious if you had to, or just elaborate on that question if you could.
Yeah, I got you. Like I said, I stated earlier that like my supervisor, he was the sole, like he was gonna give us the full go ahead. So if he was convinced that it was going to work, or that he had backing from his computer scientist, then he was going to be on board with it. But I will say that we did show like those advantages and disadvantages that we were I put out on that first content slide, we did talk about some of those things. Like a lot of that stuff could be dealt with if we just, thank you, Dr. K. Like, yeah. So it's in terms of customer service, if you just look at that, like we're not even able to communicate with our the people who have an issue. Like it's just natural. I should be able to have a conversation with you and let you know that, okay, this your issue. Okay, this is what I'm doing to fix it. Did I fix your issue? Communicate back with me. I mean, we just had nothing in place. We had no system in place. So all he wanted to see was that it was something that was better than what we had, and he was on board with it.
Nice, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, I was so y'all, of course, you're like an internal T. So in other words, you're
You're kind
with
of
the
breaking up.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just basically like just following up on Carlos's question. It's almost like if when companies use like go outside and use like a third party,
Mm-hmm.
things are structured better. So all of third party IT providers, they're gonna already have like a ticket system
Right.
for them to come in and do work for you. But when you're sort of internal, you look over a lot of things like that. It seems like you look over things like that, and so things aren't as structured and organized. Uh, because people know you, they just come in and say, "Hey, can you do this for?" You know what I mean? And it's almost like when you have internal customers, you still a lot of times need to think and behave and function as a third party
Right.
in order to get things. Have you encountered situations where you feel like, okay, if this was third party, it would be organized better?
I
Or
mean, exactly, because with our office, we have a office. The Naval Research Laboratory is directly beside our office. We do a lot of work with them that we just give to them and allow them to do for us. And I mean, they have a lot of systems in place that we just do not have at our offices. Almost exactly like you stated, like within the government, sometimes a lot of our stuff we do outsource to, but the things that we can do on the inside, we rarely have those procedures in place to address them like we should. So this was just one case that we just tried to, let's put something in place, give us a little clout. It wasn't a lot, I'm not gonna say that, but give us a little bit of clout. Let us feel like we are doing something. We are, a good organization.
right. I just want to say I enjoyed the presentation. You were very easy to follow. Everything was flowed well and everything. Great job.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? We have room for one more. Going, gone. Okay, it's my turn again. All right, so let me say this. That was an outstanding presentation, very well organized, logical, great problem to take on and to have to deal with change. Good showcase. So good on you. Nice work.
Thank you.
All right. So let's do this. Let's take until I want to say 8 minutes. Quarter till. Okay, come back a quarter till. Can we do that? And then next up. All right. See you in a few. Well, looks like we're back, or mostly back, right? Anything? No. Anybody out there?
We're back.
Crickets.
We're back.
Oh, okay,
Back,
okay.
back.
Yay. All right, Rachel, how do you want to roll? You want me to give you the screen, or you want to click your slides for you? I'm
All
good
right.
either way.
Can you hear me? Okay. If you, yeah, just click through for me. Having a little bit of difficulty. I don't know why. Like, so I'm trying not to buttons Microsoft Teams, because when I do, like, the screen just blows up and everything goes away. So
Okay.
if
So
that happens,
I
I'll
understand.
just go to my. Oh, go ahead.
It's
So
not a
if
problem.
that happens, to go to my slides, and then, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll do your slides.
Okay.
You might want to
Also, my
turn your
best friend
camera.
is having her baby today.
All right. All right.
Yeah, she's having it right as we speak. So I should have asked beforehand. So I picked this day because I'm like trying to turn off notifications because I'm crazy.
Understand. Understand. Well, hang in there. We'll be done here before you know it. Can you still hear me?
Okay.
You still there? Right?
But I am ready. Can y'all hear me? Hello?
You're fading in and out.
Okay. Ready. So
Oh,
let's
that's
see.
good.
Oh,
There you good?
yes. Is this
Oh,
better?
oh yeah, much better.
Okay, cool. I never
All
know
right.
things.
Yeah, me either. All right, you're on.
Okie dokie. Hi, my name's Rachael Holman. Welcome to my TED Talk. We are COVID teaching, and it is a hot mess, but we are going through it. So the title of my presentation is To Chromebook or Not to Chromebook? What is the question is what I get constantly from my students. What is going on? So yeah, let's get into it. Next slide, please. Okay, so the change issue. I might jump from point to point just a little bit. So the pandemic hit, of course. Oh, let me back up. I am a high school teacher in Southeast Louisiana, and I love it to death. I teach primarily seniors. They did give me 2 sections of freshman physical science, and that has been challenging because I've never taught physical science before. And well, they're freshmen, and yeah, they're freshmen. So yeah, COVID-19 hit back in March. Well, at least the shutdown started for us back in March. I also teach at the high school I graduated at, so I have come full circle. It doesn't take a lot to figure out the name and all of that. But the shutdown happened back in March, at least for my school district, and we had no clue what to do. Absolutely no clue. So for a while, there was no school. And so, yeah, that's what went on there. So then fast forward to this school year, the 2020-2021. The school district decided to push our start date for school back an entire month so that we could prepare and get ready and make sure everything, all of the proper precautions were put into place. Sorry, Gina, I think my school district was they did pretty well in terms of sanitizing and making sure we as teachers had all that we need. We have to clean the desks and everything in between every class, which takes a lot of time, but I digress. Hey, keeps everybody safe. So they decided to push the start date back an entire month so that we can get in some proper precautions on what we should be doing. And so the district, thanks to the state, also allocated funds to the purchase of Chromebooks. My school in particular has around 1,500 students. And it's a predominantly white school. And so that comes with its own some equity, social justice type issues there. But I'll get to that a little bit later. But so we all got Chromebooks, the staff included, even though it was like 3 months later. So everyone got Chromebooks, but there was no instruction as to how to use them for the personnel as well as the students. So we went to deciding if there was going
1850. Okay.
School
1750.
Okay, so we went to deciding whether or not there would be virtual school or face-to-face. So the virtual school is actually an entirely separate entity. So it's run by a completely different school, like online school system. But however, our teachers do input the students' grades. So if they decide to come back, everything should transfer over. The only unfortunate thing was for students that play sports or do any type of extracurricular activities, if they did virtual school, they weren't allowed to continue to participate because it's a separate entity. Unfortunately, also for those seniors, which I teach predominantly, they wouldn't also be allowed to graduate with their class. So the people you've gone to school with for 12, almost 13 years, you wouldn't be allowed to walk across the stage with them. So that presented a lot of issues for parents, whether or not to send their students back to school for brick and mortar or to do virtual. So they chose that way. Professional development in Google Classroom. So professional development, it didn't really go as planned. Usually there's an entire week and we go through and different things are taught. We have speakers come in and different things are, different apps and stuff like that comes through and we learn that way. But because of COVID, everything kind of got a little wacky per se. But they did decide to use Classroom as the platform for this whole virtual face-to-face I guess you would call hybrid system. But there wasn't really a whole lot of instruction put into Google Classroom. So everyone kind of had to figure it out as we went along. I've been using Google Classroom for about 5 years now, so I kind of had a leg up on everybody. But for a good bit of my peers, they had absolutely no idea how to do different things, how to create, how to teach their students how to create slideshows or submit assignments, which was huge because how else are you going to turn in anything if you're at home on quarantine or through contact tracing, that sort of thing. So there was, they did do these little online modules that you were supposed to complete, but if you were like, let's think about this logically, as a high schooler or even as an adult, oftentimes we don't really, we scroll through and do what's important if there's like a red exclamation point or a check mark or something, but we don't really go through it. And so that's what the vast majority of my colleagues did. And so that's why they had no idea how to do anything. So that was issue number 4 there. So students versus Google Classroom and other issues. That presented a whole other thing because we essentially did like a drive-by pickup for these Chromebooks. And so the students picked up their Chromebooks and they took them home, and yeah, that was it. What do I do with it now? And so when they got to school, I said, "Hi, my name is Ms. Holman, and any Google Classroom, Google Suite, whatever questions that you have, if you have problems, please come to me. I am a resource. I know how to work this stuff." How many questions did I get? 0. Why? Because they're too cool and they don't want to be seen as inferior to their peers. Who knew with teenagers, right? So that presented a whole lot of problems within itself. And then you have the superintendent / school board. So over the summer, back in July of 2020, the previous superintendent stepped down because he was going to work for the state education department, or at least he's trying to, something like that. But that's a story for another day. And so the next they went on a hunt for a new superintendent, and they found my old assistant principal, because he was the assistant principal at the time, who is now the principal at my school, or was the principal at my school. His father is the assistant superintendent. So yeah, you make those connections there. There's kind of a little bit of nepotism, and a lot of people don't like that about our school system. Our school system is great. We rank really high. It's just there's a lot of that good old boy mentality, and what's always been done is how we're always going to do it, and there's no really going behind that. Next slide. So I chose Colin Carnall's change management model. Now, it's a little dated. It was initially written in a book about managing organizations, and there's 7 steps. But what I liked about it is that they all don't go in sequential order. It can kind of go to this one, to that one, and then all over. So the first one is internal and external pressures for change, including declining performance and self-esteem. So some internal and external pressures. Obviously, COVID became an external pressure for change because we weren't going to be able to do the normal way of teaching. There's a lot of different protocols we had to put into place, as well as, I forgot to mention this, our students wear masks all day, every day. Do you have any idea how hard it is to try and make a 14-year-old wear a mask all day, every day? Yeah, it's crazy. Okay. Internal pressures. There has been a bit of a decline in terms of our ranking. For some reason, they like to gauge everyone's performance, or each high school's performance, off of their ACT scores, which I don't think is fair, because we don't teach ACT, or we don't even teach an ACT prep course. So why grade students on something that they're not being taught? But that's another issue for another day. So internal and external pressures for change. And then there's also managing transitions effectively. You don't want to just jump into whatever you're trying to change and just throw people in it, which is kind of what happened. So I'm kind of trying to backtrack so hopefully they can do this in the proper way, or this is the way I would have done it. Then dealing with organizational cultures, we have a lot of different types of students, different types of people, and it can be really difficult, especially dealing with our school board, where we only have 2 out of, I believe there's 12 members, but we only have 2 out of the 12 that have actually been teachers ever. And out of the 12, 8 of them have never been unseated, and you can run as many times as you want to. So there's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different systems that are put into place. Then there's managing organizational politics, which leads into that culture. I would like for politics not to be in education, but it seems lately, or at least within the last 20 years to me, and I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to realize that this has been going on for a while, but they like to run school systems like a business. They're chasing after this unattainable dream, or I call it a dream because we're chasing countries we're not going to catch. So it's like, why not just do it our own way? But yeah, there's a lot of different politics at play and at work, especially in my school system. Then there's creativity, risk taking and learning. There's a lot of courses that we could offer that we don't. That would be beneficial to students, but it doesn't help our ranking, so we don't do that. Then there's rebuilding self-esteem and performance. That's probably, I would say, the most important thing, especially in my organization, because a lot of students are getting beaten up by this technology, and so they shut down and they don't do anything with it outside of YouTube or, just watching videos, which they've conveniently blocked a lot of sites. And then percent of the freshman class is failing. So there's that. So trying to rebuild that and bring it back into achieving organizational change and learning is the ultimate goal. So next slide, please. All right, so here's my game plan. I'm a huge sports fan. I love football. I don't have a favorite team. I like individual players, and if I could just make my nice little fantasy team, which I've never done. Never played fantasy before, but I think I would be pretty good at it. So here is my game plan. So number 1, acknowledge problems from the 2019 to 2020 school year. So a lot of students, at least from my experience this year, in addition to, of course, COVID, but a lot of students missed out on a lot of the core instruction that they should have received. Like, I'm seeing a lot of problems with my physical science students with basic algebra. Order of operations is huge. Ratios, fractions, which they never touch again from like pretty much 7th grade. And so I'm seeing a lot of problems that should have been addressed in years prior that we're having to address now. So those are some of the internal, external issues, as well as dealing with this new technology. So step 2, I would gather information on students, faculty, and staff. A huge thing is Wi-Fi. Who has access to Wi-Fi at home? And what we found was around 30% of our students, and they're usually the low income, the ones that are on free or reduced lunch, which luckily enough, lunches and breakfasts are free, completely free to all students this year, which I thought was, claps to that. So they don't really have to worry about nutrition. But keeping up on that, and then the mental health aspect as well, because that was a huge worry for a lot of parents. Like, will keeping them at home, doing this virtual school, will that affect their social skills? Anything like that. And yeah, so what we found is kind of the same across the board. If your child was one way at home, he's probably going to be the same way when he or she comes to school. So I didn't find that to be a problem. So just gathering information like that, nutrition as well, and so on. My third step would be professional development for faculty and staff. I felt like if we could go back in time, using the month of July as a summer intensive on how to work these various technologies would have been so beneficial. I have a lot of friends that teach in New Orleans, and their school districts, they start their professional development in mid-July or at the beginning of July, and it runs through until school starts, which has been hugely beneficial for a lot of them. So I feel like having that and being able to learn how to properly use Google Suite, as well as Google Classroom, as well as other applications like Kami, and a lot of teachers use Kahoot, but Quizlet is another good one. And a lot of the students have really taken hold of that and creating their own Quizlets for studying, for different tests and different things like that. And then a school board immersion. Like I said, only 2 out of the 12 school board seats have ever been in a classroom. And I feel, how can you properly be the gauge or the end all be all to education, at least for my school district, if you haven't been in a classroom? So I believe that school board immersion would be having them come in and sit in on a lot of our trainings, or even coming into the classroom during the school year would be hugely beneficial. Step 4 would be student development as well. I felt like the month of August, granted, the Chromebooks did not come in until like a week before school started. I felt like if we could have got them in a lot earlier, a whole month-long intensive would have been beneficial or efficient for students. Like I said, the biggest problem we had was how to submit an assignment in Google Classroom. And it's so simple as to attach whatever file that you're looking for, and then you just hit submit, but you would be amazed at how difficult that was for a lot of students. And I just felt like if they had more instruction and more how to, rather than the little PDF file that they gave them, or PDFs that they gave them on, this is how Google Classroom works, and this is this worksheet that you're going to fill out, and this is how to arrange your icons, or here's some shortcuts. How are you going to do the shortcuts if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what application you're using? So I felt like that would have been hugely beneficial. And then, of course, the start of the 2020-21 school year and achieving organizational change as well as learning, because we are forever learning. Next slide is my references page, and now I will take questions. Anybody?
All right. So,
Rachel.
no,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll catch
Sandra.
up.
Okay. This is Sandra. Did you say that 30% of your students, don't have, were you trying to say that 30% of your students don't have Wi-Fi?
Not just my students, but as a school district, yes.
The whole
Sorry,
district. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good bit, ma'am.
The question is this. What does the school system plan to do to alleviate that issue? Do they have any plans?
I believe from from what from the intelligence that I've gathered through a little bit of sleuthing is that for some of those students, they bought some of those like hotspots and home routers.
Right.
But some things that I have found is that even the students with internet, when they come to school or even when they're at home, a lot of them are using their own personal hotspots like on their phones because there's just some type of disconnect. And it's like, it's the school district's Wi-Fi or whatever. Like my computer is hardline. The only reason I have a Chromebook is to do the virtual learning for the kids that are at home.
It sounds like they need to use you to teach all over the school district. The whole process of learning online, because it sounds like you do a very good job of it. You did a great job in your presentation.
Thank you.
Rachel?
Yes.
Hey, wonderful job. I just wanted to make a comment. I love your school board immersion idea. That's something I kind of grew up with at my high school here in Mississippi, but I came from a very relatively small high school. But that was something that really made a huge difference, not only for the faculty and staff, but for the students as well. So I think I saw my superintendent at least every week, multiple times through the week, walking down the halls. He may come in the classroom, as well as our other school board members. So I think coming from like a small town with a small high school, everybody kind of knows everybody. But I definitely love the school board immersion idea, especially if you're from a relatively larger district. I think it makes a huge difference to have them actually in the classroom.
Right. Like our district has 5 high schools, and I'm just saying there's 12 of y'all, and y'all represent a good bit of each, each place represented in the district. And so it's like, you just take a day out. Like literally, we're paying you. So it's like just
right. And especially since they make decisions for the faculty and staff, it's kind of like, how are y'all making these decisions and y'all haven't walked in our shoes or at least know what we're going through personally. So I definitely agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh yes, we have a question from Julie. She had typed it out in the chat.
Sorry, I'm afraid to touch it or else it'll
Don't
go
touch
away.
it. I'll read it. It's good. Oh my. Hi, Rachel. Was the choice to make virtual school a separate entity a decision with the intentions of discouraging virtual school?
I can only speak my personal opinion. But as a whole, I want to say no, but my own personal opinion is that is exactly what it was. There was a huge pushback. So I forgot to mention, we started the school year in a hybrid mode where they divided up the school by last name. So A through K came Monday and Wednesday and every other Friday, and then L through Z came Tuesday, Thursday, every other Friday. And so it started out as they would do their homework at home on the days that they weren't here, and just email with questions, and then they would come back on the days that they were here and go about their day. And so I felt like with the whole thing with virtual school, and I was seeing a lot of people in the community going back and forth, because it's like, I work, and who's going to watch my children, like my young kids that are at home, or my child is a senior and they're not going to be able to graduate with their class, or my child is a senior and they're a 4-year letterman going to play football at Southeastern or LSU or something like that. And so if they don't go to brick and mortar school, they won't get to play, and so they might lose that chance of having that athletic scholarship of any kind. And that was one of the ploys that they put out there. And the thing is that they don't, it was for a lot of extracurriculars, but the only extracurriculars we've had are sports. There is no music. There is no art galleries. There is no theater. There has been 0 plays this year. And it has made me furious, because it's like they are putting sports on, and I love sports, but they're putting sports on a pedestal higher than anything else. And a lot of those students that came back for that specific reason of doing these arts, humanities type of things, they're not getting to do it. So my own personal opinion, yes, they did do that to, encourage people from doing virtual learning.
Well, that's just pain.
Yeah. I think somebody had
Kenneth has a question, I believe.
Help to unmute myself. Rachael, thank you. Great presentation. I wanted to make you feel a little bit better about the virtual school situation in Mississippi, but I wanted to explain it before I put it in the chat feed. I'm going to share the article dropped today. The FBI, the U.S. Department of Education's Office of the Inspector General is now inspecting some schools in Alabama because
he's muted himself.
Kenneth, we lost you.
Hey, I'm back.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. I shared the article just to kind of, I don't know how much you caught, but just to kind of make you feel a little bit better about virtual school in Mississippi, that y'all are probably doing way better than we are, because we have a couple of superintendents who are going to be buried under the federal prison for the Ponzi scheme. They just ran off virtual school students and banking money off of it. So we're talking a couple of million apiece, and then use that money to help build new high schools while they were also pocketing it too. So cool stuff if you wanted to read. I just wanted to explain before I shared the article. Just drop.
Most definitely.
So as usual, we have teachers who are dying of COVID, and we don't announce it to our classes, but we're also apparently in Alabama really good at ripping our students off too. So if that makes you feel a little bit better, that it may seem rough, but y'all are doing a great job, sounds like. So
thank you.
Makes you want to cry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, listen, Rachel, you did a wonderful job, and such an interesting and almost heart. At once, your story is terrifying and fascinating and hopeful. So, thank you for sharing all that. It's hard to believe what we put the teenagers through, as well as the little ones, and all they have to contend with. Because of our decisions. And I think you and Kenneth both touched on something really important, just right there at the end too, is that politics does play a large part in, in what goes on, and what it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary. So good job. I hope I don't know what I hope. I hope it gets better. We've heard similar stories here in Mississippi with people struggling with the technology and scheduling, and Gina will attest to the, trying to manage the COVID and the cleanliness. The whole thing is it's brutal. It really is. So my hat's off to anybody that works in a school system anywhere in this country at this point, because it's been a major lift, I think.
Oh, and Gina, I just wanted to say, last week I wanted to comment so bad because I was furious the entire time, like livid. I have been livid since you've mentioned these policies that are not non-existent. I've been livid. So yeah, just know if you don't want to speak up, I will speak up for you. Like, don't know me, but yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, Rachel. I too really strongly considered, do I want to continue working in the classroom, because I do believe it is a health hazard. But you know, everybody is doing the very best they can do. I understand that and I appreciate that. And great job on your presentation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We had two stellar presentations tonight, and we're going to roll on with these next week as well. For the interim, let's go on break. Please come back by 1/2 or whatever that is, 8:30, right? And you get to listen to me ramble for a while, maybe ask a few questions. You never know. It might work out, right? So good job. See you in a few. Well, hello. We're back again in the home stretch. I'm assuming everybody's back, and we'll let it go at that. Oh, by the way, Kath, I read the article. Wow, mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, we used both of those superintendents for dual enrollment when I worked at the college up there, so it was a little surprising this morning. I texted a couple of faculty I used to work with and said they better not have fluffed my enrollment numbers. I don't want to have to. I imagine I would have heard by now though. So
I'm sure you would have.
it's crazy.
I'm sure you would have seen the subpoena or something, right? Just kidding.
They're going to bury those folks under the federal jail by the time they're done. It's crazy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It makes you wonder how they thought they might get away with it, but topic for another time.
Well, you know, they trickled into Mississippi and Georgia too, so that's even scarier. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. All right.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
You're getting started. I was just going to tell Kenneth that his Superman cup did not go unnoticed, and you do look a bit like Clark Kent.
Oh,
my little girl got me that when she was 2 years old, and I've been super careful not to break it ever since. But thank you. It's one of my favorite coffee cups. I seem to collect them these days. So
there you go. Well, now you got to hold it up. I don't think we all saw it.
I was washing my cup out on break, and it's sitting right out there by the reception desk. So
oh, no worries.
We'll show it. We'll show it next week.
There you go. Catch it next week. Good job. All right, let's go ahead and get into this transformational leadership thing. And this is always a topic that I like to bring in when we talk about change leadership, because a lot of what we do in change requires a degree of leadership. I know from your readings and your studies so far this semester, you've seen that time and time again. Certainly, John Cotter talks about it with his processes, and just the realization and really that just the hard statement in so many forums that, you know, you can't have one without the other. You need to have some form of a high level of commitment, a lot of people involved, a vision, all those kinds of things, that sense of urgency. And that's where this transformational leadership comes in. Start with some of the key points. First is, over the past 20 years, and I think it's been longer than that now, transformational leadership's become one of the most researched leadership topics, and it's shown great potential for navigating large-scale strategic change. And a lot of what we're talking about in this course is just that, large-scale strategic change, big opportunities, right? But the funny thing about it is, transformational leadership is just not confined to people at the top of an organization. You can be a transformational leader in any part of your organization and make major contributions to the way of life there, not only by making things better, making them not only more efficient but more effective in better living environments. It's also, the research is also showing that the greater and the more complex the change, the larger the enterprise and the more people involved, the greater the need for transformational leadership at every level within the organization. And this becomes evident, you know, and I like Cotter a lot because he hits on this time and time again. Change agents throughout the entire organization, you're mobilizing your army, and somebody it has to start somewhere. Somebody starts that leadership discussion. So when people pick up on it, they buy into the vision, they start making things happen. So and that's very important, because no one person can do it, and no one division or office can make your large changes happen. You need people involved. Plus, that's where the smart resources a lot of times are right there at the point of contact where the work actually takes place. They're the ones with the creative ideas that will help the organization turn a corner in making that change. Another point, transformational leadership is a philosophy and a set of skills that can be learned and developed over time. Now, this is an important thing. For many years in leadership studies, it was always thought that, well, not always, but it was thought that there were certain traits that leaders had, and they were just natural traits, and they were born with them, and that sort of thing. But that's not true. It may be true for some. Some people are naturally good at playing the trumpet, I suppose. But still, there are a set of skills that can be learned, can be developed over time, and can make a significant contribution to implementing change in the organization. So it's got a lot of study behind it. It's shown that it's got great potential for navigating those big changes. The larger and the harder the change, the more change is going on within that organization, the greater need for this type of leadership, and it's something that can be learned. So those are 3 key points for us to consider as we move forward. But you can't talk about transformational leadership without also talking about transactional leadership. Think of the 2 styles of leadership as 2 sides of the same coin. They both have their place in situations where they're needed, and they are very, very effective. So I'd like to kind of compare them, if we would. Usually the gut approach is to say, oh, we don't want to be around the transactional leaders. And true, transformational leaders and leadership tends to be more charismatic and future oriented and more involved, whereas transactional leadership tends to be sometimes a little detached, a little more controlling, and that sort of thing. But again, everything has its place. You don't want to answer a 4-alarm fire and open up discussions to committee on how you're going to attack that situation. Everybody's trained and ready to go in ahead of time, and everybody knows exactly what their role is. It's very, very controlled and very well orchestrated. So that's one instance where transactional leadership certainly comes in. So let's go ahead and look at the 2. So transactional leadership is basically more concerned with maintaining the normal flow of operations. It's what Cotter refers to as those day-to-day operations that keep the business running. And he talks about that's the formal structure of an organization. So it's very important that that maintains, because that is the business. The issue then becomes, how do you move the business forward? How do you move the section forward, or the entire organization? Well, that's more the purview of transformational leadership, and that's where the network that Cotter describes in Accelerate comes in. Develop strategies for taking these folks take care of the one. They'll take care of the normal operations and oversee that those things are happening, but at the same time, they're developing strategies for taking the organization, the company, the department, the work team to the next level of performance and success. And it's intentional, as opposed to simply maintaining the status quo and efficiency of operations. Both are very important. If you don't change with the environment and with the situation that you're dealing with as a business or concern or of any kind, you're not going to survive. By the same token, you still need to turn out whatever it is you turn out and do it well. Transactional leadership tends to focus on maintaining day-to-day efficiency, quality, productivity, costs, inventory, those kinds of things. Basically anything related to day-to-day operations that are important. Quality, inventory control, ensuring training, ensuring that there's staffing and scheduling and all those normal things that go on to maintain the formal part of the organization. Transformational leadership, however, focuses on things like team building, motivation, and collaboration with the employees at different levels to accomplish change for the better. So transformational leadership is more concerned with the future, as it were, moving the organization forward and making it better, making life better for the organization. Transactional leadership uses disciplinary power and incentives to motivate employees to perform at their best. It's called transactional because it exchanges rewards for performance. That's the transaction. I think in the old days we used to kind of compare this type of leadership to the old carrot and stick. If you do this, if you do this job well, we'll make sure that we put in a good word for you for promotion or whatever those things are. It's lower level type motivation, but in many cases it's necessary. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and moving up through those lower levels of needs, then you also kind of take into consideration that these things need to be addressed. People need to feel safe at work. They need to have their pay on time. All these kinds of things. On the transformational leadership, again, we're talking about leadership that inspires others to attain higher levels of performance while also providing opportunities for personal and professional growth for each employee. That's why we love working for transformational leaders. I think they tend to be more hands-on, more involved with people, more concerned about their development. Well, there's a reason for that, and the reason, of course, is that with that development comes performance, and performance that exceeds the day-to-day. So it's a key difference. Transactional leadership is it's stable. And for transactional leaders, change really is not on the agenda. They are more concerned with maintaining things in a smooth manner, normal operations, efficiency, quality, those kinds of things. Whereas transformational leaders they tend to be visionary. They inspire change. They see change as a driver for success. And they also realize that they can't do it alone, that they have to develop their people and bring their people along with them in order to be successful. Transactional leaders really focus on the here and now. So we could probably think of a lot of situations where either one of these would be appropriate. But in our discussion of organizational change, especially large changes, but even small changes, or several changes going on at one time, we need a bit of transformational leadership to make those things happen, because those are the things that are they're goal oriented. They go above and beyond. So just wanted to contrast those. Neither one is good, neither one is bad, but for our purposes, we're going to focus on transformational. Focus will be on the future. So, give you a kind of a definition of what the transformational leader is about. They foster group organizational performance beyond expectation by virtue of the strong emotional attachment with their followers, combined with the collective commitment to a higher moral cause. And you see some things going on here. If you think about this, group or organizational performance is really the goal. Beyond expectation, that's beyond the day-to-day. And that's by virtue of a strong emotional attachment. People become attached to transformational leaders, and transformational leaders take care of their people and are concerned about their people and want to see them do their very best. So there's a strong attachment with the followers combined with a collective commitment to a higher moral cause. And what is that? That is the vision. So you see, even in Diaz Sarn's here from 2011, and it's all these are good articles that I have listed on the references that you have. You see that this is really it's a mindset, it's a philosophy. of how do we move the group forward. Well, how we move the group forward is by engaging and enlisting their talents and their enthusiasm for moving forward. So how do you recognize them? Transformational leadership is really not hard to recognize, especially in contrast to transactional leadership. But some common characteristics that you might recognize here: they act with integrity and fairness. They set clear goals for individuals and the team. Again, they tend to be very hands-on with people. They encourage others to be innovative, to be creative, to extend beyond what they thought their talents would be or are. Higher levels of performance, if you will. And they're good coaches and good mentors. Provide individual support and recognition. They celebrate the wins, and they provide support not only to the group, but to subgroups and even to individuals, to make sure that people feel like they're a part and that they're recognized for their efforts. They raise the morale and motivation of others. These are the kinds of people that you want to rally behind. They steer individuals away from self-interest and towards selflessness, trying to reach that vision or that shared goal for the organization of moving forward. Inspire others to strive for the improbable. Status quo then becomes less of a concern because the leader says we can do this. We can break through some of these barriers or some of these impediments that we have in our job and do something better. Before I get to development strategies, I'll tell you a little story. It won't be too long or drawn out. I'm assuming everybody's still here. Okay. So many years ago, when I was still in the Air Force, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And up to that point, I had worked in the weapons career field in the Air Force, as in primarily in bomb loading, but anything that had to do with putting armaments on aircraft or fixing armament systems on things like F-4 fighters, F-16 fighters, F-15 fighters, those kinds of things. So in that environment, what you would see is a lot of transactional leadership. And it made sense. We were a production-oriented organization, or those of us that had worked in that environment. Every day we had a sortie schedule. We had a schedule for loading and for functionally checking out the aircraft and doing all the tasks that needed to be done. And it was very, very highly orchestrated, even down to the point where we had to be in certain places to recover the aircraft when they returned from their sorties or from their missions. So the way of life there in a transactional sense was you kind of accepted it as just the way it was. However, when we moved to Okinawa, I went to the maintenance squadron, which was not on the operations side of the house. Maintenance squadron was more on the logistics side of the house, and we were the ones then, and I was involved with things like repairing the equipment off of the aircraft, and we weren't tied to the flying schedule. What we were tied to is repairing items, doing periodic maintenance and inspections and those kinds of things. So we had a lot more latitude in what we could do to hopefully extend the life of the equipment once it went back out to the aircraft. The commander that we had there was an extraordinary person. We were a 700-person maintenance squadron, and he embraced quality principles, and in a big way, and so much so that he personally held classes in the squadron and personally taught quality principles and techniques and tools and team building and all those kinds of things to all 700 people in the squadron. And it took him a while to do it. And the thing that struck me about him the most is, and when I sat in his class, he'd get to the end of each class and he said, "Now go back to your units, find something that's broken, that's eating your lunch, work on it, work on fixing it, and when you're ready, give me a call. I will come down and take a look and see what you've done, and we'll talk about it." And what he was doing, he was trying to encourage people to think outside of the box, use these principles, apply them, and make things last longer once they went back out to our friends on the flight line. So what that resulted in is the mindset eventually shifting for the entire wing from the measure of success being how many spare engines we had in the engine barn to how long the engine lasted on the wing of the aircraft. This huge philosophical difference, and everything became more making things last, making them work better, higher quality, those kinds of things. And it showed. It made a huge difference. And I would call that commander a transformational leader. Hands-on, coached, supported, and also gave people enough leeway to be able to make decisions and to be able to make changes that were meaningful for the organization. And you really turn that whole squadron and the wing in a very positive direction. And that's just from one person. So I just wanted to share that with you. He's on this list. I can see the kinds of things that he was doing. Now, if you bear in mind that transactional leadership is something that can be learned, it can be developed, it can be practiced, it kind of lends itself to the idea that any one of us could develop our own characteristics or our own approaches on how we operate in a leadership capacity. And when it comes to making change, it can have a big impact. So let's talk about, or I'll talk a little bit about those development strategies. One is to identify the strengths and weaknesses of your team members. So let's think about that for just a second. If you know your people, then you can not only place them better, but you can work with them to develop maybe a weakness, capitalize on their strengths, get them involved with helping solve real problems, and help with your change effort. But you have to know them first. Develop an inspiring motivational vision for the future. In the example that I just gave you, that vision was really a better life for everybody. If the equipment lasted longer on the aircraft, we had fewer complaints from our customer, less pressure from the chain of command. Why are my missiles not firing or locking onto target, or why are these engines keep breaking, or whatever those things happen to be. And it allows us to be more creative and not have that pressure and be able to fix even more things. And it's quite inspiring. Motivate each individual and get them to buy into the vision. And a lot of that is just communication. Is it a legitimate vision? Do you see something better for the future of your organization and for the future of the people in it? And can you bring them along? It's a lot of times that's just encouragement. And it's also walking your talk, so to speak, so that they recognize that leadership in you. Manage and involve yourself in the delivery of the vision. You can't just say it once and walk away. You have to be out and involved with people, ask questions, see what they're doing, and take an interest in what they're doing, and make sure that they understand what that vision is and involve them in it. Continue to develop stronger relationships with your team members. which is really related with motivating your people and developing them, identifying their strengths and weaknesses, is to be able to know them and let them know you as well. Become engaged. So there are 4 I's to transformational leadership. One is, this is out of the research again, one is idealized influence. And basically, if you were to sum that up, it would be transformational leaders are role models who lead by example. They don't just tell people what to do, they do it themselves. They don't lead from behind, they lead from out front. They provide inspirational motivation. Transformational leaders motivate and inspire greatness in others. They work with people, they coach people to be more than they are, to be their best, and to do their best, and to want to do their best. Intellectual stimulation. Transformational leaders stimulate innovation and creativity. They promote innovation and creativity, as in the example of my commander who went out and said, go out and fix something. Let me know what you did. I'll come down and see it. Individualized consideration. They're coaches. They're mentors. They take care of their folks. They're developing their future. So we can look at this again from our earlier meetings, and we're talking about transitions, right? Bridges, transitions, and some of those things that John Bentley said and we had discussed is that everybody in the organization, if it's a big change and people are involved, may be at a different place at different times going through this continuum. So you kind of think about how would you move people through difficult times using these 4 I's. Idealized influence, for instance, walking your talk, being a good role model, a good example. Inspirational motivation, keeping people's eyes and hearts involved with the end goal. You know, what's the vision, and why it's important to them, why it's important to everybody. Intellectual stimulation, how can you help us make a difference as we move through this change? What things can you do to help solve these problems that we're experiencing? Work on it. Let me know what you did. I'll come back and let you show me. An individualized consideration. Not everybody's moving through the curve at the same time. Some people need a little extra coaching and involvement, maybe a little extra training, or whatever those things happen to be. But a good change leader, and transformational leaders are change leaders, they're change agents. No matter what level of the organization that they're working in, they are involved, and they're involved with people, and they break down barriers and build capabilities with them. From another point of view, you talk about directing the rider, motivating the elephant, shaping the path. We talked about this model. Idealized influence again. How would you use that to do any of these things? Well, if you were providing a positive example, you're showing the rider what to do and how it's done. Inspirational motivation. There you're appealing to the emotions of the elephant and the vision. Intellectual stimulation. Individualized consideration. Individualized consideration tie back up to the rider again, and providing them with necessary coaching and instruction. Intellectual stimulation can be tied back to directing the rider, or even shaping the path of that rider and how they can get to reach their goals. So these are things to consider. Another way to look at it in transformational leadership, if you were to think about, well, idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, if I had to pick any one of these, which one would I work on first as a point of improvement for myself to develop myself as an inspirational or a transformational rather leader. Some people, they say, well, I haven't always been the best listener, or not always the most creative. Well, how can I develop those skills in myself so that others will see it in me? Set a better example, lead by example, those kinds of things. And then you can work out a strategy on how to deal with that. So these are things that can be learned and developed. If you get a chance, and I hope you do, I did leave you with a good amount of references. So some of these are really good to look at if you get a chance. Okay, upcoming real quick. Kenneth and Sandra, you're up next on the 2nd of March. As if you would please, by midnight the night before, just go ahead and upload your scheduled online presentations. Change model case study PowerPoints, just discussed that. Change model case study papers coming up on the that'll be due on the 7th. And the personal change anything challenge reflection, and I'm hoping you're doing really well on that, coming up on the 7th as well. So, as you get a chance, and I should have carved a little more time for myself, because there's more I would have liked to have asked you about transformational leadership, and we're really out of time. So what I'm going to do is this: I'm going to ask you to think about it and how it ties into change and change leadership. And I believe that next time when we get back together, we'll have our presentations. We'll also talk about emotional intelligence and how that ties in to leading change in an organization, how that ties into and works with transformational leadership to make change happen, to make transitions happen. And that's it for me, unless you have any questions. It's good to see your faces. That means you're still there. I know, right? You all have a great night, and we will see you next time. I will get the recording up as soon as I can, and the slides and all that stuff. I already put a few suggested readings if you're interested, and I think I downloaded a couple of, or rather linked a couple of YouTube videos. One is with the session stuff, and the other one is with the change videos page. If you get time, like you're in graduate school, that's all you have is time, right? Yeah. I know. Anyway, you get bored one day. Like, when does that ever happen? Yeah, I know what that's like. But it's there if you want it. Not a problem. And I am available for questions and conferences and all that kind of thing. Just let me know, okay? As I always say, ask early, ask often. You have a great night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
All right.